Everyone talks about China and the Middle East coming together right now like it's something brand new. New deals, new infrastructure, new strategic partnerships. But here is what the headlines won't tell you. This isn't a new story. It's a sequel. Arab merchants were living in Chinese cities in the 7th century. The greatest traveler at the Arab world ever produced, Ibn Battuta, was writing detailed reports on China in the 1300s. And a Chinese admiral once sailed to the Arabian Peninsula with a fleet so large it makes Christopher Columbus look like he was sailing a toy boat. This is not a new relationship. It's a 1400 years old conversation that got interrupted and is now picking up exactly where it left off. Hi, I'm Falafel. I'm a Chinese polyglot. I speak 7 languages, and I've spent most of my life diving into the deep, often hidden connections between the Chinese and Arab worlds. In today's video, we are covering 3 things: the Tang Dynasty connection and what they traded besides silk, the Zhenghe moment, the greatest fleet the world had ever seen, and the Great Interruption, what actually broke the sponge for 300 years. By the end of this video, you won't see China-Arab relations as a news headline. You'll see it as a homecoming. Let's go back to the year 618. The Tang Dynasty has just begun. While London was a tiny town of 20,000 people, the Chinese capital, Chang'an, had over 1 million, and inside that city, Arab merchants, Persian traders, a thriving Muslim quarter, mosques are still standing today. At the exact same time, the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates were rising in Damascus and Baghdad. These were the 2 wealthiest and the most sophisticated civilizations on earth, and they were obsessed with each other. Everyone thinks the Silk Road was just about fabric. It wasn't. From China heading west, the world got paper, printing, and gunpowder. From the Arab world heading east, China received advanced mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The Islamic Golden Age and the Tang Dynasty weren't 2 separate stories. They were the same story told in 2 different languages. Fast forward to 1405, the Chinese admiral Zheng He set sail with 317 ships and nearly 28,000 men. To give you perspective, 80 years later, Columbus crossed the Atlantic with only 3 ships and 90 men. Zheng He's flagship alone was 5 times longer than Columbus' entire fleet combined. Chinese sailors stood on the shores of Oman. They negotiated in the ports of Aden and Hormuz. The Chinese arrived in the Gulf decades before any Westerner. So why didn't they colonize? And why didn't they stay? The answer is purely cultural. Those voyages weren't about conquest. They were about recognition. It was about showing the world that China was the center of the civilization. If you watched my last video on 面子, you recognize this instinct immediately. Then in 1433, it just stopped. China turned inward, burned the ships, and the Great Interruption began. For the next few centuries, the indirect line between China and Arabia was cut. First came the Portuguese, then the Dutch, then the British. Outside powers took control of the sea routes. They built the ports, they imposed the tariffs. By the 19th century, China was facing the century of humiliation. At the same time, the Arab world was being carved up by colonial powers, redrawing maps in rooms in Europe. The distance between China and the Arab world over the last 200 years wasn't natural. It was forced. Which brings us to today. Today, China is the Gulf's largest trading partner. Thousands of Arab students are learning Mandarin Chinese. But this is not 2 strangers meeting. The memory is in the buildings. It's in the mosques in Xi'an, built like Chinese temples. It is in the frankincense that once traveled to the Forbidden City in Beijing. When a Chinese businessman and an Arab businessman sit down today, they feel a shared instinct for hospitality and the long view they aren't imagining it. They are remembering it. The question was never why these 2 worlds are coming together. The question is, why didn't we ever think they were apart? The era of outside control is ending. The conversation is simply continuing. If you ever want to go deeper into the business and history of this corridor, I send out a newsletter weekly. Link is in the description. Give it a subscribe. Next week, we're going into something controversial. 2 systems of who you know. They look like the same, but they work very differently. Subscribe now so you don't miss that, and tell me in the comments what part of this history surprised you the most. I'll see you in the next video.